agnostic, there are certain things you're certain about.
Like what?
That, like you exist.
I'm not certain that I exist.
Hang on. Did you take a permission before?
Go for it, I don't care, man. I don't mind.
Listen, this is all for educational purposes.
I understand, I don't mind being on camera.
Okay, that's fine. My name is Mansur. What's yours?
Jai. Sorry, I didn't get yours.
Mansur.
Mansur.
Yeah. Right. Nice
Jai,
meeting you.
it's a J, with a J.
Jai, nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you.
So, if you know you exist, there are certain things you already know for certain.
I am saying I don't know I exist.
Oh, you don't know you exist?
No, I don't know I exist. I think I exist, and I'm pretty sure about it, but I can't know for certain. This is like a very common thing that, like,
Do you have certainty in anything?
Basically zero.
So basically, if I now move away, I didn't exist. For example, to you, you're not certain I exist, right?
I'm not certain. No.
Good. So if I now move away, still, you're not certain that I moved away. I'm not in an existence. Or did you feel like if I say, Chai, I don't exist maybe, so I'm going to just walk away. And you felt anything like, why is this guy walking away? But if you start thinking about maybe this guy, Mansur exists, that is your certainty.
I struggle to see how this is a certainty.
Okay. Do you eat anything?
Yes, I eat.
Stop eating because they don't exist. Food doesn't exist. Food certainly doesn't exist. In fact, are you breathing now?
I am breathing.
No. Air doesn't exist. Oxygen doesn't exist.
So
stop breathing. No. Stop breathing. Jai, stop breathing. Because the oxygen doesn't exist. So what's the point of breathing oxygen? The food doesn't exist. The water doesn't exist. So now, let's start with the air. Stop breathing the air. Because it doesn't exist, and you don't exist either. So it's not going to affect anything. It's not going to affect the oxygen, and you're not going to be affected by yourself in the absence of oxygen. So, do you have a timer? Okay, let's start timing it and see how long you can be unconvinced that things don't exist.
I'm not unconvinced.
No, uncertain. No, uncertain. So uncertain. So let's see how we can start certainty level. Stop breathing. Okay. Don't breathe in any oxygen. Okay? So let's carry on to the point we want to establish whether you're certain or not. Okay? Don't breathe anything.
Okay, can I breathe? I'm sorry.
Sorry?
I will breathe now.
Oxygen doesn't exist. You don't need oxygen.
I think it does.
No. I don't want you to think. I want to make sure you're certain. So to be certain is, if oxygen didn't exist and you didn't exist, there's no point breathing in it. So stop breathing. Okay, let me pause there. So let me try again. You don't exist for certain, neither does oxygen for certain. So because you're not certain about it, to understand whether you exist and this oxygen exists or not, I'm going to ask you to stop breathing. The one that is not certain about its own existence, and the one who's not certain about air and oxygen. Okay?
Brother, what I'm asking is, your definition of existence is physically...
Certainty. You're not certain about oxygen being existing, you're not certain about you existing.
No, but the problem I'm coming with is the word existence. Your definition is things that are actually...
Do I have to define existence to you now? Don't you know what it means in English?
You already did, I think.
So there's no point defining then.
Okay,
so you said you're not certain.
Could you redefine it, just so I can get...
Hang on. What is your definition of existence? Let's use that one. When you say you're not certain that you exist, what is your definition of existence? And then I'll apply that definition, and then I can prove it to you, or try to prove it to you, whether you certainly exist or not.
I would say that the existing is to be observed by a conscious entity, to be in the presence of consciousness.
Okay, let's take that definition. So, to exist is to be observed by someone. Now, that's my existence, not yours. So you're saying, if I as a conscious entity observe you, then you exist or I exist? Which one is it?
You're assuming you're conscious.
When a conscious entity observes you, does that prove you exist or I exist?
Proves I exist.
Okay, that proves you exist. Okay, so let's see whether you exist or not. I'm a conscious entity, and I am. If I am a conscious entity, and I'm going to prove it to you by using this example of air. So stop breathing the air. Let's start again. Reset. And don't breathe. Don't breathe the air because you don't exist, and neither does the oxygen.
I don't understand. I don't understand this argument.
The air doesn't exist, my friend.
Why?
For certain, it doesn't exist. If it did exist, then you would need to take it because you are dependent on air. You are
I'm dependent on air. I agree.
But if you don't exist, how can you be dependent on air? Can you explain that to me? If you did not exist,
why is existence a necessity for?
Why? How could you exist? How can you be non-existent and still be dependent on air?
How can you not be? Like, why is that? Why do we need to exist?
If you are non-existent, because you're not certain that you exist, a non-existent thing does not need to depend on something.
One is non-existent. The concept of a number two is non-existent. Yes, it depends on the existence.
Are you
of number
certain
one.
that you exist, or you're uncertain?
I'm uncertain.
You're uncertain, right. If you're uncertain, then that means you are not, there's a possibility that you don't exist, right? There's a possibility you don't exist.
Yeah, there's a possibility.
Right, let's say that possibility you don't exist. So now if you didn't exist, you should not be dependent on air.
Why so?
Because if you didn't exist, there's nothing to depend on because you are non-existent.
Why is that? Where in the definition of existent does it mean, or dependent on air, does it say I have to exist for this?
Anything that doesn't exist, right? How can it be dependent on something? Tell me.
Okay, the number two does not exist.
Then how can it be dependent on air?
Number two is dependent on the number one. Without a number one,
How
the
is
number two would not
number
exist.
two? How is number two dependent on air? Tell me.
It's not dependent on air.
Exactly my point. So anything that is non-existent.
No, but I'm saying it's
Hear me out.
dependent on the number one.
I am saying air. All my parameters is on air and oxygen, nothing else. So, if you didn't exist, you should not be dependent on air. Do you understand? If you're non-existent, you should not be dependent on air.
Well, what if air doesn't exist?
Then it should be still applicable. If you didn't exist and the air doesn't exist, which I claim it does, then if you stop breathing it, then you would know the air doesn't exist or you don't exist.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So you tried twice already. I don't want to do it again. You keep breathing the air. Why?
Because I have to.
Because you're dependent on it. It's either the air exists and you exist. So you're no
It
longer.
doesn't exist and I don't exist.
You don't exist.
Maybe.
No, I'm certain you don't exist.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm absolutely certain you don't exist.
How so?
I'm absolutely certain you don't exist.
Why?
What do you mean why? How can I speak to something that doesn't exist? You don't exist. It was a pleasure speaking to you all. I'm not going to waste on something that doesn't exist for certain. So I'm certain you don't exist, and you should not feel hurt about it because you don't exist. Okay? How can I shake hands with something that doesn't exist? Are you crazy? How can I shake hands? Oh, let me shake hands. It doesn't exist.
Brother, come on.
7 nights. 7 nights.